So I want to kind of move into blend shapes here, just to get a bit more done on the character. Um, and let's see, I'm just going to take a look at this. I'm just going to go into the hypergraph, and where am I? Right over here, and I got my rigging stuff here. I'm just going to move this over here so it's easier to see. I just held down Control, middle clicked, and dragged it and dropped it on this, and that shuffles the order around. Okay, and to make blend shapes, I don't know, my fast little tricks go something like this. What I want to do is I want to be able to open up the mouth here. And I'm just going to go in and I'm in the animation section, and let's just turn off the shading here so I don't have to look at that. I'll grab, say, this vertice and that vertice, and I'm just going to grow my selection. I think right about there. Okay, that should be more than enough for the vertices I'll need. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to create deformers, and I'm going to create a cluster. And I got this little cluster on here. I'm just going to go to the side view. And it's hard to see the cluster because it's got inside underneath the mesh, so I'm just going to do this, and I can see it sitting there. And I'd like it if I move the pivot point, so I can hold down D, and I'll move it here just in front of the earlobe. Okay. And now what I want to do is, what does the mouth look like when I open it up? I get something like this. Okay, so that's bad. It looks kind of neat up there. Anyway, so what I want to do is I've got the cluster, and the cluster is weighted 100%. So I want to make it so that it's a little bit more, there's a gradation right in this area, not 100%. So I'm just going to grab the mesh, and I'm going to go to Edit Deformers, and there's a thing in here called the Cluster Weights tool. And in here, the Cluster Weights tool, previously when you saw this paint skin weights, smooth was bad, but I find in here the smooth works really, really well, and if you just hit flood a few times, you'll start to see what it's going to do. It's going to smooth out these edges, and it actually does a fairly good job. On this tool here, I've got reflections on. Just remember the reflections are here under stroke reflection, so I can have reflections on, paint on both sides at the same time. And I'm just going to use a little bit of theory on this. I've noticed that if I go in here and I hit replace with a value of 0, I'm just going to make my brush a bit bigger. I'm going to take this whole area here and just go and get rid of that. Make this all black. And I'm going to do the same thing with the neck, so it's not being affected in this area here because that looks a bit weird. Okay. And just make sure I get inside the mouth here. I might just go and hit Isolate Select for a moment because I think I got some stuff inside of the mouth that I don't necessarily want. Should be okay. There. And no one's going to notice this stuff inside the mouth here. Okay, but whatever. And now I got that done, and now I'm going to go back here to Smooth. And now with Smooth, if I go into these areas and I smooth them out, they pull back into this a little bit. This mesh gets affected a little bit more, and I can do this. And let's smooth this area out a bit. And I'll maybe smooth out in here. So it kind of blends these areas together. And remember, I have the cluster, so it's already rotated. So the jaw is partially open. Okay, and that looks good to me. Okay, and let's just turn off Isolate Select, and I'm just going to go back over here. I'm going to grab my cluster. Clusters are kind of hard to select because I always select the mesh and I have to deselect. And then I've got the teeth freaking selected and stuff like that. I personally, with the cluster, I like it if I go here to Display, Transform Display, and you can get their selection handle. So there's a little selection handle for it. So when you grab over this area, first it's going to select bones, but if there is a selection handle underneath my drag select, it'll grab that. And so now you can see that when I rotate this, it gives me a much softer kind of rotation, just like a bone. Okay, those clusters are like bones without the bones and without the hierarchy structure. And so now when I open this up, you'll notice that it's not, the teeth actually don't follow, or either does the tongue. And I like to have those on the cluster as well while I'm doing this. So if I go in here to Window, Relationship Editors, and I go in here to Deformer Sets, because this cluster is considered a deformer, if I go in here to Cluster 1 Set, and I look down in here, and there's my head group, and you can see it in green here. It's got the head on it. And I'm going to go in and put in the teeth lower and the tongue. I don't need the teeth upper. Okay? Just remember that if you just click them on, click them off. Whoop! You can turn them on or off. Don't do that with the head because then you have to re-weight it. It sucks. Anyway, that should be good enough. And now you can see my cluster moves the teeth, the tongue, and the whole unit. Okay, so that's done. And so remember, the cluster is a tool. That's all it is. The cluster is just this tool for opening and closing the mouth. And if I want to do dialogue, I'm going to want about 5 heads, I figure. Okay, and so what this is going to help me do, we at 546, let's see if I can actually do this. I'm going to open up the mouth. And remember, you can do all sorts of stuff with the cluster. You can scale it. Do whatever you want, as long as you zero it back out, or zero out the rotations and zero out the translates and put the scales all back to 1. You can make as many crazy heads as you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the mouth like this. I'm just going to grab this head, and I'm going to make sure that I'm grabbing the top of the hierarchy here. And I'm going to make a duplicate. And so with this duplicate, if I center the pivot here, and I pull this over, okay, I've got an ah face, more or less. I might have to do some modifications to that, but that's my ah face. I'm just going to take this cluster, put the rotation back to, say, 0, and maybe this one here, got my ah. I'm going to make my E face. I'm just going to open the mouth up just a little bit like that, and that should be good. Just using the up arrow this time to go up to the top of the hierarchy, make a duplicate, pull this thing over. There's my E face. Actually, I'm going to go up here and name it. So I either name that one E or S. Okay, because that's kind of the face you make for a S or an E. And this one here is my face or my face, or whatever. Okay, and let's just, damn you, god damn it, doing too many twitchy little things. Just grab the cluster, and I could zero it out, but I think I'm just going to go for it and grab this, and I'm going to close the mouth, something like that. And we'll take the head, and I'm going to make a duplicate. And this duplicate here, I'll put it over here a bit, someplace. That's going to be my M face. Just before the mouth makes a sound for M, there's like same thing with the B and the P, is you'll find that the mouth closes up. I'm going to do something like that. And what time are we at? 8. So next one here is the O face. And I consider this one typically the hardest face to make, so I'm just going to do something like that. Open up the mouth again a little bit. And we'll go up here to the top of the hierarchy, and I'm going to make a quick duplicate over here, and I'm going to call that O. Okay, and and so that's going to be for my O. And I think I'm going to break this up into 2 parts because I'm not going to be able to do this fast enough. If I take this cluster, and I'll go in and see for this one here, what I want to do is I'm going to pull it up a little bit. I'm just going to move it down a little bit unnatural here. But basically this is going to be for my F face, so I'm just going to do something like that. I'm going to pull it back a little bit, and I'll do the rest of that with modeling magic. And now if I grab this head, make a duplicate, that is going to be my F face. And I figure with these faces you can pretty much do anything. You might want like one face with a mouth closed or something like that, but you can pretty much do your dialogue with this. With 5 heads you can do dialogue, I figure. And I'm going to have to break this video up, so I'm just going to make sure everything's named, and I'll stop it here.